Finished training for the day? Time to fight post-workout fatigue with Core Power Protein Shakes. They're packed with 26 grams of high-quality protein to build muscle and electrolytes to help hydrate. The nutrition you need to help your body replenish, rebuild, and repair post-workout so you can power on to the next one. Champion your recovery with Core Power. Visit corepower.com to learn more.
Saturday presents, in the red corner, the undisputed, undefeated Weed Whacker Guy. Champion of hurling grass and pollen everywhere. And in the blue corner, the challenger, extra strength, Saturday. Eye drops that work all day to prevent the release of histamines that cause itchy allergy eyes. And the winner by knockout is Saturday. Saturday, bring it on.
Welcome to the Sportsman's Voice podcast, your inside connection to outdoor legislation. From the Beltway to policy happening your way, we're covering it all. I'm your host, Fred Bird. Join us as we explore public land access, wildlife and fisheries management, Second Amendment rights, the triumphs that shape our nation, the sports we all love, and the stories that fuel our passion for the great outdoors. This is the Sportsman's Voice podcast. Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to this edition of the Sportsman's Voice podcast. This feature episode, we are covering National Hunt Fish Day. We are celebrating all that we do all year round in one day, fourth Saturday in September every year since 1972. We're going to kind of cover all of it. We got three guests teed up for you. It's my pleasure to welcome in Cuz Strickland. You know him from Mossy Oak, Primos, turkey filming pioneer. Scotty Lago, friend of mine here in New Hampshire, Olympic snowboarder, X Games snowboarder, SIG ambassador, and host of Lago Outdoors. And finally, we welcome in the one and only Sam Soholt, host of Legends of the Wild, a field and stream podcast. Good mix of folks coming in with different levels of experience and resumes in the outdoors, philosophies, thoughts. So definitely wanted to have it mixed up and give you guys a good opportunity to hear from varying ideas and folks that love and have a passion for the outdoors and what we do. So I will let them speak for themselves. Teeing up Cuz, Scotty, and Sam. Let's go. All right, folks, our National Hunting and Fishing Day celebration episode continues. It is my pleasure to welcome in the one and only Mr. Ronnie Cuz Strickland. You guys have heard him before on the program, and we're pleased to have him again. Cuz, how are you?
I'm good, brother. Looks like you got your trapping beard already going. I'm liking that.
Yes, sir. Yeah, tis the season, ready to go. I just got back from the Fur Takers of America Trappers College. What a time that was.
Yeah, I keep up with you on social media. I went and spoke to the big fur thing, the National Fur, whatever, National Trappers Association show in Virginia. And I asked him, I said, why do you want me up here? I ain't worthy of speaking to these people, but they wanted me to talk about social media and sharing their message and all. And I was loving that.
Yeah, there's a lot to learn there still, and that was in the college I went to. That was also covered. Being able to talk about trapping in a positive way.
Yeah. So, like I say, if you live out on the land, every day is Earth Day. But at Mossy Oak Properties, we've been celebrating the National Day of Conservation since we kind of got into that. And I've been a part of some really cool stuff. One down in my hometown, Natchez, Mississippi, right across the river several years ago, they had all the fishing clubs got together. Instead of catching fish, they were collecting garbage at some of the beautiful lakes, and that's what we had at the weigh-in. people get real creative. And I've gathered up my crew and picked up trash, and that turned into be such a big job. I couldn't afford the trash bags anymore. We've done some cool stuff, but we tell them all the time, just get outside, do something, and that's what we did this weekend. I had two of my grandsons and a son-in-law, and I said, be at the shop at 8 o'clock. And I kept them outside till past supper time. And we weren't doing, epic stuff, but we were doing cleaning and brush clearing and stuff like that. And I gave them the t-shirt, and and sometimes you've got to just let them know it's important to you. And that's a that's a that's a big deal. It's hard to reach youth these days. And trust me, I know they're busy. And Fred, I'll tell you how old I am. My oldest granddaughter just graduated from Mississippi State University. And my second grandchild is a freshman there. Third grandchild, he'll be in there next year. And Cranky, who's famous, the smallest one, he's playing junior high football, and they stay so busy. And they have these, which is they're kind of the generation that grew up with that 24/7. So we're competing with that. But I have found a couple of things. Number one, if you give them options to get them off the phone, they'll do that. And number two, I think this generation, because they had so much information in their hand, they're really smart and they understand the messages from the Congressional Sportsman's Foundation and whoever they're weaving through that, making good decisions. In my opinion, this is me just looking down. We got to make sure we keep the messages coming to them. So what you do is priceless, always has been. My only hiccup with you is you made me follow Richard Childers one time at the convention. I'm like, I'm gonna get him back for that. But being relentless like you are, being a trapper and a hunter and a dad, I mean, you could write the handbook on what we need to celebrate. So thank you for that.
Well, those are nice words. I like you, and you have said, always learning, still learning, just day to day trying to figure this stuff out. Especially with the
Yeah.
technology, and you and I have talked about this, and when we think about National Hunting and Fishing Day, you get the one day that we celebrate it, but to your point, it's every day for us that live this, and I see that with you and your grandkids, and especially Cranky. But you have acknowledged, and I agree with you, when the technology is used correctly, as we're in preseason and gearing up and you guys are out clearing brush and getting ready for your hunting seasons, there's so much information the kids are privy to, and they don't it's good to have mentors. It's good to have a grandfather like you that's been at this, for all the years you have, and you have so much information to share. But they're empowered to do this on their own sometimes with the information available to them. So they're not always relying on one source, right?
That's it. And I, I've learned a lot from my grandkids watching what they look at on their phone. The other day, the middle one, Matt, I caught him. We were getting ready to load the buggy up to go do something, and I saw him looking at this older guy, and I was like, Who are you following? What is the deal with that guy?" He said, "Pop, that's the best guy on the planet, sharpening axes and knives, and he's not trying to sell me anything." So I'm telling you, they're paying attention. And I've got a lot of faith in their decision because they've seen where the problems come from. And you don't have to be a tree hugger to understand the environment. And boy, they ask some great questions. And we need people like you and this got a platform and a big microphone. The good part about social media, why I do it at my age, eh, I can make a post, especially on Facebook. Those people comment on Facebook, and I'll spend an hour at night or reading the comments because I can tell, I can put my finger on the pulse of what people are thinking. And I'm not, they know none of my stuff's monetized, and I don't have anything for sale, and it keeps me posted. And the social media part of it is not going anywhere. So we got to refine how we message the younger people, and not just younger people. I may have told you this story before, but back when I was on the board of QDMA, which is now the NDA, and the first Field to Fork event I went to was they cooking venison at the farmers markets and stuff, and collecting people's thoughts. And they did that first hunt, and it was over in Georgia. It was a crossbow hunt, and it was probably the most diverse crowd I've ever seen. Purple hair, earring, nose rings. I mean, the gamut. And they were so interested in one thing, and it was that protein. And how do I get it? They had no issues with hunting. Promise you, nobody in their families had ever hunted, so they understand it's the right thing to do. So we need to perpetuate that message in the form of food because they know the environment's got to be right to hunt.
Sure.
And I think that audience is out there. I think it's low hanging fruit.
Yeah, no, for sure. And again, coming back to the focus of the show, this last weekend really provided and continues to provide as we go into the seasons here in 2025 and 26 that's an awesome opportunity to highlight that some of the events that occurred throughout the country and just allowed for that and people to come into the fold, the people you're talking about, the non-traditionals, if you will, at least by today's standards. But once they get into that and then the mentorship side of it kinda takes over because they need people to show them along, getting the idea that, okay, wild game is good, it's good for me, it's clean, there's an empowerment value into sourcing it and be able to do this stuff myself. Now how do I get better at it, right? And then National Hunt Fish Day puts a spotlight on that. Examples like yourself going out with, the kids and doing the work on the land shows more of that. Kinda talk a little bit about that aspect of it.
It's this what we do is not like golf. I'm not bringing up the Ryder Cup, but if you if you want to get better at golf, you go get a less 30 minutes for $30. You can't do that, or else you got to have a mentor. And you hear people about take kids, and I've done it forever, written articles, but I tell people all the time, if you want to have an impact, take somebody with a driver's license, especially their dad, because you can get the neighbor's kid hooked and as excited as anything in the world. But guess what? He can't go back
Right.
unless you take him. Get his dad or his mom or somebody fired up. It's like you open up a whole new world to them, and that's always been a fun thing from them. My dad had a term, him and his old buddies called Wickerbill. You probably heard it, but that's what they call somebody who wasn't very good at hunting or fishing or what. And I was like, I hated that term because I felt like that when I tried to plant my first fruit plot. I was like, you gotta embrace them, people, and you're gonna have to spend some time with them. But if you do that and make that imprint, they are hooked. Because guess what? I love having the argument about hunting. And because people will say, "Well, that's cruel," whatever, and I like what. Guess what? It's the most successful wildlife operation in history. I'm preaching to the choir, but where's all that money come from for trapping and relocating and habitat for. I had a lady get on me at the airport in Albuquerque. I had some mossy oak on or whatever. We've been out there trying to film an elk hunt, and she kind of, "You been hunting?" "Yes, ma'am." And she lit me up 8 or 9 minutes, and I'm just nodding my head. And we got through, and I said, okay, how long have you been vegan?" She said, "What do you mean?" I said, "I assume you don't eat meat." "Well, sure I do." Well, there's my opening. But anyway, at the end of this, I said, "Look, if you're really, really concerned and you don't have time to do anything else, buy a hunting license. Put some of your money where your mouth is, because that's where all them funds come from." And I said, "Go Google a Pittman Robertson ad." And people they don't understand it. So again, the social media is a good way to get that word out there.
And that, on this program, I think I say these very words every week. I feel like I bring up Pittman Robinson, Dingle Johnson, Wildlife Restoration Fund every week. But this week that we're celebrating this past weekend is like one of the most important stories to be told. It is the most important story we need to educate our own community on, because I dare say most anglers and sportsmen don't understand how that system works, that self-funded system works. But definitely to the ladies in Albuquerque that are just curious about your adventures and wearing camo, right? And you aptly hit the nail right on the head. Is that funding? Right now, as it stands, as you and I are having this conversation, uh, CSF, our field staff, our team, we go to all of our governors' offices in the states that we cover, and we ask for a proclamation every year recognizing National Hunting and Fishing Day is the fourth Saturday in September, and then the whole whereas statements in that proclamation highlights the contributions of the sporting community to that state for that previous year, and it spells out all the funds, all the revenue that we contribute as a community and what that does. Um, it's wildly important. Again, as of right now, we have 45 out of 50 proclamations. Now, you think about the states that encompasses, like there's 50 states, so we got to be hitting on some of the non-friendly states, and there may be a couple more coming in. So at the end of this week, we probably are going to be 46, 47. And you're leaving, I can tell you're leaving California out there that will refuse to sign it because they're California. New Jersey, has traditionally been a hard no, but that's not necessarily true this year. And I'll sandbag a little bit, but there could be one coming from New Jersey much later in the year, and that would be tremendous. And all that to say, this completely bipartisan, nonpartisan issue, just recognizing with the having integrity and recognizing the contributions of our community, and going back to your start, uh, up to 2025, it's huge.
It is huge. And it's you bring up partisan politics. I'll tell you a quick story one more time, but I took a state Supreme Court judge, not Supreme Court, but a state. I think we're in Missouri, and it was a big fundraiser, turkey hunt. This guy was a Democrat, and he had signed up for the hunt or whatever, and he drew the short straw and had to go with me. So we spent a couple of days together, and he knew that I was not a Democrat. but we just had great conversations. And, we'd spar back a little bit back and forth. Well, what about this? And what about the last morning we were sitting there, we're having a great hunt. The turkeys kind of circled us one time and I'd spotted. I was waiting to get up and move. And he was sitting there and we had a deep conversation that morning. He said, and he said, cuz, in all my years on the bench, I can't recall ever having a youth under the age of 18 in front of me that had a valid hunting license. Because they go through all their records and stuff. And at some point, whatever I had said, it sunk in enough for him to think about how cool would it be if all the politicians argued back and forth like that? Because you can't find any. There's no glitch in our armor. We're doing what's right for the habitat, what's right for the future. I it's not about good people, partisan politics. So what you do is, and the Congressional Sportsman's Foundation, all of unbelievably important.
The audience that's listening to your testimony right now is made up of those policymakers from the state houses down on the hill. We know that we hear from them; they're listening and tuned in. So your message is very important, and it's these stories are what they need to hear. And um, well, I thank you for it. And that's a fast 20 minutes, cuz I don't want to take up all your time, but I appreciate the contribution to this special episode. And um, I think we'll leave it there because I think you ended it perfectly and right to the audience. I think that's exactly what they need to continue to hear.
Thank you, Fred. You know I'm a fan.
I appreciate it.
Anytime you need me, I'm here for you,
Yes,
brother.
sir. Thank you. Good luck this season.
Thank you.
All
You
right,
too,
folks, our
brother.
celebration of National Hunting and Fishing Day continues. It's my pleasure to welcome in medalists in the 2010 Winter Olympics snowboarding, X Games snowboarder, and SIG hunting ambassador, one Scotty Lago. Scotty, welcome to the show. Appreciate you making the time.
Hey, yeah, you're welcome, man. Happy to be on.
So as I said there, we just got done celebrating National Hunting and Fishing Day this past weekend, celebrating all that sportsmen and women do, contributing back for the good of all the money we spend on licenses and tags. Never mind the residuals of when we go travel, which you do a lot, what that brings to local economies and job creation. But at its simplest core, we just love being out there, and the fact that we participate that way and the way the funding mechanism is set up with those local dollars being matched at the federal level through Pittman Robinson, we get to do a whole lot of good. Just tell the folks that are listening, and it's regular folks, a lot of legislators, people making policy listening. From your perspective, growing up, and now you're a dad yourself. What does this all mean to you, and why is it important for folks to get out?
Oh, I mean, for me, I just love nature, right? I'm fascinated by it. I think it's amazing. I have so much respect for the wildlife and especially the animals that I chase because the more I hunt them, the more I learn about them, and the more I learn about them, the more I'm amazed at how cool they are, and how amazing they are at surviving and how smart and how well adapted they are. Um, Being out in the woods is just a wholesome thing to do, man. I don't know. I just love it. I feel at peace when I'm in the woods. And I don't even necessarily have to be hunting. I get a lot of enjoyment out of scouting, out of shed hunting, um,
Mhm.
out of, mushroom hunting, like foraging. I'll just find any excuse to be in the woods. It's a great spot, great place.
No, for sure, and having that resource available to consumptive users, if you will, like us, or even the general public, that they're able to go out and do all of those things you just said for some of the very same reasons and maybe more, is made possible by the sporting community, which I think is it's an undertold story and one that we could do better at. And I say this every week on this program, but certainly it's interesting having you on because I think you bring a different perspective based on some of the folks I normally have on, and sometimes it's a little preaching to the choir. But you have an interesting cross section with your resume in the outdoors. You're a very um, successful, uh, Southern New Hampshire deer hunter, turkey hunter, et al. I mean, you're one of the best. Um, but you deal with people through your old profession, your current profession, if you will, in the snowboarding realm and the outdoor recreation space where people don't do this, and some have adverse reactions to it because of your success and your positive outlook. What are those interactions like for you? Have you changed minds, or at least made people to be maybe indifferent to it where they were anti in the first place?
I really hope I have. I couldn't give you one example, but I've been an advocate for hunting and fishing and the whole outdoor world for a long time. And now in the snowboard world, when I go see my buddies or people from the snowboard community, people always come up and ask me how my hunting season was, and they know that I'm kind of all about you know uh about hunting. Um, so it's cool. They, at least the people who follow me on Instagram definitely know. And I try and share a little bit of knowledge, um, with maybe each post that I do or
Mhm.
something like that. So yeah, I'll be honest, it was not well received in the snowboard community when I um started doing it more public, I guess. We kill a buck, which the word I don't want to use the word trophy, but because that has a bad rap to it. But if you kill a big buck, you've done something. That is really really hard to do, and it's really hard to kill a mature doe. You know, it's something that you should be proud of, and it's an accomplishment. So I think when people post up online, it's something to be, maybe not proud of, but it's an accomplishment. So, when I first started doing that online, it was not well received, in the snowboard community. But I believe I've changed some hearts, either that or the people who were really against it stopped following me. So
Yeah, yeah. Which sometimes for the end user, the content creator is beneficial too, right? Um, yeah, like you mentioned, the word trophy does have a certain connotation, but I do think we should be proud of what we do. The harvest, the filling of a tag, the kill is the icing on the cake, and I hate to be cliche, but it truly is. All the things you've already talked about, the reasons for getting out, the scouting, putting the plan together. Only 20% of people on average are successful when they go in the field. So when you're filling a tag, you're doing something, most of our friends aren't doing, right? Statistically. So it is important. It is something to be proud of. And again, for all the stuff we've already set the conversation up and how we support healthy habitats, healthy flocks, and healthy herds for the good of everybody. Whether we're pulling tags or not, your neighbors, my neighbors, they can turn their nose up to what we're doing, but they are the beneficiaries of what.
absolutely. And then, like as kind of going back to what I was saying before, it's like, you have to, if you're gonna hunt this animal, you have to know them. You have to know what they eat, what they need for habitat, right? And I'm just interested in that. So the more you learn, the more aware of habitat, and I guess what I'm getting at is that, like, once you can't turn a blind eye towards it, right? So, like, there could be, you know, city folks or people who even might call themselves conservationists, but they don't really know what, they shouldn't just, uh, you know, I'm butchering this right now. Sorry, I'm running on like 2 hours of sleep. I was up early this morning, hunting, of course. Um, but I guess what I'm getting at is, the more as far as habitat. Prime example, like at my house, like it used to be a big horse pasture. Yeah, I'm letting it all grow up now. Over the last 5 years, because it's better for the birds, it's better for the bees, it's better for deer. Um, and you're just kind of more aware of. That's the horrible example, but that was the example that shows.
Yeah. No, so we can run from there. I mean, that's a great point, and there is this whole idea of just moving away from the Scots turf looking yard and being more with native grasses and uh, pollinating type flowers and really getting pollinators in there and just really um, increasing the value for the game and non-game species alike because you're creating cover, you're creating brood habitat for turkeys, for ruffed grouse, for quail, all that, and then obviously um, your ungulates in the spring dropping fawns and things like that. So yeah, you're exactly right, and yeah, it's not maybe the best looking curbside appeal depending on where you live. If you got some privacy, that works. But you know,
Right.
it's hard, right? It's hard to overcome, especially places like we live, and it's replicated so much, especially on the eastern western seaboard and built up concrete jungle type urban sprawl where our forests are so fragmented that we don't have these long contiguous tracks, especially here in the east versus out west, for these critters to move and move about. So whatever is on the landscape, keeping those healthy, and contributing back to that and being cognizant of all the things you're doing as well as your neighbors. Really, it's just it really magnifies and increases the importance of that work so that what little we have is beneficial, right?
Amen. Well said.
Um, Briefly in our remaining minutes, I just you posted a cute video the other night there on your IG. Your son was in the blind with you. He looked pretty fired up. From a dad's perspective, talk about that and what it means to have the little one out there and how fired up is he?
Yeah. So my cut 5. This would be the second time that I've tried to hunt with him. I've tried to hunt with him turkey last year, and oh, sorry, when he was 4. And that didn't quite work out. I'm like, all right, he needs another year. So this Saturday, I pretty much spent all day trying to prep a blind because there's the only way that we're gonna have any action inside a blind where we can move around a little. But um, it was really cool. I think he still needs another year. But I was happy to go. Was you know he enjoyed himself. And I want him to really appreciate nature. And I can only hope that he's gonna love hunting like I do because it's an awesome passion. And yeah, who knows though.
No, and it's incredibly important as baby boomers age out. Folks in our age demo and maybe a little older are supposed to need to pick up the mantle and continue to be part of this. And the examples we set for our kids, they may not be as like full on into it, but if they at least understand how the whole thing works, our place in wildlife management, our place in being stewards of the outdoors, maybe that's a note they hit on, and we keep them going. Whether they're just turkey hunting or shooting ducks or whatever it is, as long as they're participants, that's how this thing's going to be maintained. Because without us, without recreational shooters, this thing doesn't work and it doesn't exist. So, we literally are training that next generation for, again, as cliche as that sound, it's a fact.
Yeah, I mean, could any hunter consider themselves conservationist because they're buying a license? You know what I mean? I think maybe that's why a lot of people put a lot of emphasis on it, right? Because they're like, well, really a conservationist, even though a big portion of the license, you know, to to that. Yeah,
And it's a generational mindset too, right? I mean, again, going back to the boomers, do they really consider themselves conservationists? Maybe a very small percent of a percent, I would guess. People in the profession, people in policy, people at the state agency, they got it. But people with the granddad's deer camp just cruising around back roads, like that probably wasn't a thought. Now, fast forward to where we're at, a lot of sportsmen who just are passionate, dedicate most of their lives to this, are very cognizant of it, and have some learning to do. But I think there is a more general understanding of our place in that and being a preferred means of management when we talk about the North American model of wildlife conservation, the envy of the entire world. why we have so many species that we can responsibly take, utilize for food, utilize for other materials, and then we continue to have these healthy flocks and healthy herds. That means we're doing it right. And because of those 7 tenets, hunting being a preferred method of wildlife management, it specifically calls us out. That's saying something. Again, I think more people
Right.
in our space should learn and understand that, and I think they'd have more buy-in and, you know, look at those tags as being more than
Totally.
just an opportunity from September to maybe February, depending on where you live.
Totally.
You know? Awesome, man. Well, look, I'll let you go. I know we tried to hook up a couple times, and some technical snafus have jumped in here and there, but always great to talk to you. For the listening audience. The night before National Hunt and Fish Day, I went out and I had a couple hours to hunt, and I was able to punch a doe tag. However, one Mr. Scotty Lago came and bailed me out. Admittedly, it happens. Had a weird shot on a doe, and we happened to be texting about this, and he, like a good friend, he followed up, said, "Hey, how's that track going?" I said, "Well, man, it's not going very well." And what's neat is, on top of all the things we've already talked
Yeah, it's a
about,
Jack Russell.
Mr. Lago also has a very cool little. It's a Jack Russell, right?
Yeah, it's a Jack Russell.
His name is Camo. He's about 14 years old, and this little fella can track a deer like nobody's business. So what turned into somewhat of a stressful situation, I got to hang out with a friend, watch his dog work, had like a second hunt, and we found it. Sure enough. So very apropos the night before National Hunt Fish Day, and just this whole really cool interaction. So great to see you the other night, and great to see you now. And I appreciate your contributions and all that you do as an ambassador for what we love.
Thank you, brother. You as well. Right back at you.
All right, man. Well, I'll let you go.
Thank
We'll
you,
catch
brother.
up
You as
soon.
well.
And
Right back
again,
at
thanks
you.
so much for your time. All right, friends, we are wrapping up our celebration of National Hunting and Fishing Day 2025 with the great Sam Soholt. You've seen him all over the socials, one way or another, doing good work for conservation. Whether he's marching up and down the roads for miles for duck stamps and contributing to conservation that way. His photography, his storytelling over the years, and recently hosting Legends of the Wild. That is a field and stream podcast. So all of that and so much more. I'm likely missing out, but Sam, thanks for the time. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
What well, I kind of joked off air. Are you done walking? I seriously doubt it, maybe just for the moment. But how was the ruck for ducks, and what did you do for National Hunt and Fishing Day?
Yeah, the ruck was good. Covered 50 miles in a single day, and my feet hated me for about a week, but I'm kind of recovered from that. But so far we've raised just shy of 17 grand and have more, corporate sponsorship stuff coming down the pipeline. So it'll be another good year. Yeah, I actually for on National Hunting and Fishing Day, I did not hunt and fish, which is ridiculous. But I was taking care of my 1-year-old daughter, and I was, just coming fresh off of the duck ruck and spending lots of time outside and then chasing stuff around this fall, and now that October's here, man, I'm just fired up to I just really get after it. Like, September's been hot. It's like October 1st supposed to be almost 90 degrees today, but next week, the temps are dropping. I've got a trip planned to go do a bunch of scouting stuff for a hunt later in the season, so I'm fired up.
Yeah, I was as we're recording this morning. This will publish on Thursday. Um, I got out and did a little fall turkey hunting myself this morning early, and yeah, the whitetail woods are starting to wake up over here in New Hampshire and Maine. Saw some crazy scrapes, fresh scrapes. Just everything's starting to come together. So I don't really get jazzed up for whitetail until I start seeing that stuff, and I was like, oh,
Mhm.
okay, this is cool. Still turkey hunting, but yeah, that's good to see.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, this next, like, 35, 40 days, like, when everything like you said, all the scrapes are opening up, rubs are happening, like, deer are starting to act more like deer, and pasture groups are breaking up, and just that whole transition, like, into the rut, it's just yeah, gets my blood going.
Sam, you've done so much over the years. I feel kind of inadequate having you on for only like 15 or 20 minutes, but you are somebody in our sporting culture, our community that really champions, I think, what it, conservation aside, but like National Hunting and Fishing Day really represents your ability to rally people to causes, your ability to raise money outside of just standard buying licenses, and people rally to you. At the very least, it's incredibly impressive, but there's got to be more motivation for you outside of just the accolades that come with that. And I surmise that it lines up very much with the celebration of the day.
Yeah, it's just hunting, fishing, spending time with landscape, not just on the landscape, is what I live for. Like, the more time I can spend in nature, the faster I can get into that, like, flow state, and so that's always been my motivation, is protecting that opportunity for future generations, because I know that my headspace is better every time I watch the sun rise over you know, broken landscape looking for mule deer, or if I'm 20 feet up in a tree and I'm watching deer and birds and turkeys and stuff move around the woods. It's just everything else melts away, and you start to remember like why you're doing all that stuff, because we're here sitting on microphones talking about this stuff, and all the auxiliary stuff is cool and continuing that message. That's what it takes to like get people involved in this stuff. But man, the end goal is just being out there doing it.
Yeah. Where do you think in 2025? So we've been celebrating National Hunting and Fishing Day really since 1972. Kind of remarked earlier in the program about, around that time, its genesis, you really just had like this old school mentality with, folks not too far removed from World War II veterans coming back, the baby boomer generation, going to grandpa or uncle's deer camp. And, there really wasn't this overarching sense of conservation and what it means and how the whole thing works. And you're only at that point less than 40 years removed from Pittman Robinson being established. So culturally, really not a thing. But here we are. Where do you think we are currently, and do you see a positive trend going forward the next 5 or 10 years? Because I asked this in the sub question is, you see some people in our space, a very loud minority, but ballyhooing about there's not enough space. There's too little access, and we're asking for more people. And then with a day like National Hunting and Fishing Day, is it appropriate?
I think it's incredibly appropriate, and I think the people who are out there being very loud about thinking that there's not enough space are missing the whole point, and there's gonna be a bad reckoning for those people when the baby boomer generation ages out completely, like, that's coming very fast, and then we're also competing isn't the right word, but there is so much to do for the younger generation that is easier than hunting and fishing. It's cheaper than hunting and fishing. The access to it is more simple. So if we don't continually recruit people into the fold and have more voices, we're going to lose it faster than you think. And so I would say there's been a positive increase in people having education about conservation funding and what that actually means. And it's from podcasts like this. It's from people like Randy Newberg and Meat Eater and these mainstream type people who are constantly saying, listen, it's going to feel like you don't have a big voice. But when it comes down to it, when somebody on behalf of Rock Mountain Elk Foundation or this, you know, the Sportsman's Alliance or whatever organization it is, when they lobby in Washington, D.C. and say, I'm here on behalf of 500,000 members, that holds way more weight than just somebody on social media using hashtag whatever. Um,
No, and that's an important point, right? Because every time one of these logos is put on a community joint paper, if we're bringing that as part of a community piece of testimony to a committee, and then we're doing it on, just as an organization on behalf of ourselves, that is uh, quick math. A lot of people, right? So you put an NWTF logo on there, it's 250,000 people right there. Start adding it up, and these legislators, especially in state houses, that really means something. You can move the needle with five, very curt emails or phone calls. You can get their attention. It's only 5 people. You start throwing numbers like that, and then it's like, "Holy smokes." So, yeah, there's a huge, power in voice just with that representation, outside of the perceived megaphone that is Instagram and the rest of it.
Yeah, and most of the social media stuff does make a lot of noise, but most of the time it's only making noise to the people who are paying attention. What what social media really does is if you can get enough noise going, then you'll get a percentage of those people who will actually do what needs to be done, and that's call your representative or send an email to your representative. So it's like it's like this funnel, right? A click funnel where it's like social media is the top of the funnel, and then you start to educate people, and it's like, here's call to action, here's a phone number you can call. And it's been nice to be able to do that because, you looked at the public land possible sell-off, just recently. I don't know how many millions of phone calls and emails were sent, but it was all stemmed from social media. And so that's what's cool about social media. Most of the time when people just send something out into the ether on social media, it's not actually getting the attention of your representatives.
Yeah, no, for sure. That one definitely caught fire, and I can think back to the election locally in Colorado, Prop 127, and just the
Mhm.
the amount of good support in the community from all corners of the country that got behind that, which I thought was just amazing and good positive momentum. So, we look to the 2026 sessions coming up here very quickly and legislation starts getting filed. Can we depend on that same pipeline of communication and enthusiasm to rally, especially some of these smaller states in the Northeast and the Northwest? And as you well know, a lot of these problems aren't confined to these standard places like the Northeast and Northwest. This stuff is moving inward. It's hitting the Southwest. It's hitting the Plain states where folks just aren't used to that as people migrate out of these, areas like Californias and New Yorks that are not very friendly to us. They're still bringing those ideas and spreading them around. So it's certainly challenging. Thoughts there?
Yeah, I think the nice thing we have going right now is the amount of momentum and the number of people who at least saw something about these different issues and like, oh, I got to pay attention to this stuff. Um, because a lot of people who did, they went and listened to a podcast and they were like, oh, this is like every day. And, and you start to figure that out and you go, okay, well, I'm going to pay attention to my state. So I think there is a subsect of people now in every single location that are like, okay, what's coming across the pipeline? Like, I can at least tell my friends and family to like call our representatives and reach out. So I think we're definitely more in tune. I think we have a good track record of beating some of this stuff, which shows like what happens when you speak up. Um, I'm hopeful that we don't, miss out on one because there's been so much like effort into some of these where people just get worn out
Yeah.
on trying to,
Well, I
yeah.
mean, I hate to say it, but we're in a predicament in 2025 going to 2026 where you really can't let off the gas. We're a passionate group of people, our community, the angling, shooting, hunting, and trapping community. Unfortunately, we're so fragmented
Mhm.
organizationally. We don't have a monster funder like an HSUS, right? That just will throw dollars wherever they want, whatever they think they can get. It doesn't matter to them. Where you're out there walking 50 miles to pay for duck stamps. So, these duck stamps are going out and giving people an opportunity, little individual issue, uh, efforts like that. And then all the other, critter groups and policy groups are doing the same thing. But right now we have staff down in Richard Childress Winery for our big fundraiser down there to help us fund our mission to be in those state houses, to be on the Hill advocating. I think back to, I mentioned Prop 127, the land grab earlier this year that was thwarted. Um, Florida, two examples, getting right to hunt and fish on the constitutional amendment and then getting a bear season. Last year, Louisiana getting a bear season, adding to that this year. These are great positive results of people getting together. And I agree with you. That momentum, I hope and I think will carry through. That there's more positive, I think, coming out of our community right now than there has been recently.
Yeah, and with that momentum, right now is the time to be proactive about this stuff. It's trying to get, when you talk about public land specifically, it's trying to get legislation passed that protects that stuff in perpetuity, or at least like we've got a 25-year, like timeline where we can like work on stuff that we need to do when it comes to like city growth and paying for more access to different things, rather than just like, yeah, we're going to sell a bunch of this off. So things like that right now, because we have the momentum, I think is going to be the next step. Now, I wish I'm not in politics. I don't really have any ambition to be in politics, but there's going to have to be people in those positions who are favorable to hunting and fishing to help push these things through, because that's the only way we get legislation drafted.
I think, and I find this daily through my work, and I hope you don't mind us going down this road. I just feel like this is with all your work in the past and your knowledge of all this, I feel like this is an appropriate way to talk about policy around National Hunting Fishing Day. But at the very minimum, and this is a common theme on our show, telling the story of the American system of conservation funding at a minimum is what we need to really work on within our own community as well as in the state houses and on the Hill. I think you have a segment of politicians that'll be favorable to us. There's those that will not be, but again, always that 80% in the middle, where if you tell them this is a self-feeding, self-funding system and we're not taking money from the taxpayer, we're not asking money from most general funds, I think most of them get down with it. As long as they're armed with that information, understand how it works. Okay, why wouldn't we make more opportunity or perpetuate or renew some of these programs so that the sportsmen and women of the country can continue to fund something that is beneficial to everybody?
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing is educating our own people, like who are people who are already in the fold. Like I'll be completely honest, until the last decade, I really didn't understand how conservation funding worked. It was just like, oh, I have to buy a license and then I can get to go hunt. Um, and you start to see these different avenues. Like, okay, if I buy the license, it goes to the state biologists and the state agencies. If I buy a duck stamp, it goes to the federal agency. If I buy a gun, there's a certain percentage of that goes to the Robertson Act. The Land and Water Conservation Fund from oil royalties, which is under threat right now. I mean, that has helped literally every county in the country. Um, so you start to like actually see how these things work. And it's very easy to have a conversation with somebody who might not hunt or like be on the fringe of it, and they have only seen what the media has portrayed, or, like bad somebody that they know hates hunting or whatever it might be. You can say, well, actually, we're not just shooting animals to bring home antlers and put them on the wall. It's like I got to feed my family, my parents, my friends. I got to have a giant barbecue. I gave away 25 pounds of meat to somebody that I know loves venison. Like you get to have all these experiences from that one animal that, again, like you said, we need to do a better job, like one, educating people who do hunt and fish on how to tell that story, and two, actually telling that story to people who will listen.
Yeah, for sure. And getting back to your example of what you just said, Mark Duda with Responsive Management, they've done a recent poll uh, bearing out, acceptability, certain terms and things like that. And when we tell our story to people that don't get it or just don't have exposure to it, when we tell them that we are out there sourcing food, there's this sort of locavore vibe to it. The majority of people are down with it, like over 80%. Like that's cool. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's not for me, but I want you to be able to do that. So just talking about it in that way, you don't have to go down every avenue and try to cover your butt for all of it. Like, that's just it. Like, we're out there putting food on the table, enjoying nature, and people dig it. And, the numbers bear that out in the research.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's just educating people. And, I do think we have that on our side where this people who want to be more connected to their food and understand that kind of pipeline, understand hunting and fishing a lot better as like the homestead movement grows back.
For sure. I'll, be honest with you too, like you were here. I didn't start getting it until about the same time, about 10 years ago, maybe a little more. But when guys like you and Ben O'Brien, this younger generation of folks really started deep diving this stuff and dissecting it and doing the historical analysis of it and telling that story, the whole genesis. And I was like, every time I talk to Ben, I either have him on a podcast or just in the turkey camp, he gets so into it, you get so into it. It's just, I don't know. For me, it's the enthusiasm. Like, tell me more, tell me more. I don't have to read the history book. You guys are the history book, and you do a damn good job of telling that story. So we need more Sams, more Bens, and more guys like me just trying to learn and convey what I'm learning from you guys and, the studies and that. But I think, you guys as thought leaders and historians are going to lead the way, and the people that you inspire will help. So I think this is very apropos conversation to be having around National Hunting Fishing Day, and it's just it's a good way to round out the program. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just every time I get to be a guest on a podcast and now get to host a podcast and have these conversations, I love it because it's an opportunity to tell the story about what we do more and more, and what we've done for generations, hundreds and hundreds of years. So it's a cool opportunity that we get to have to do these types of things.
Yeah, no doubt. Tell us about Legends of the Wild. Talk about the podcast and where people can find it.
Yeah, so launched in early July. We're doing 2 episodes a month, trying to find cool people to talk to. So far, it's been really great. You can find it at Legends of the Wild on pretty much any podcast streaming platform. Yeah, go check out. I think we've got 8 episodes out. It'll be recording episode 9 here tomorrow or the next day, and yeah, so it's good. We got a lot of cool stuff coming.
All right. Well, we'll leave it there. It's always good to see and catch up, even if it's only for a couple minutes. Good luck this season, continued success. And folks, make sure you tune in, check out Legends of the Wild podcast, and give Sam a like, follow, and all that on all the socials. It's a very good if you're not following his accounts. Good storytelling, good imagery, all of it. I got nothing but good things to say. Sam, we'll see you soon, bud.
Sounds good. Thanks.
My thanks to our guests, Cuz, Scotty, and Sam. Great guys, all, and as you heard, different experiences, different upbringings, um, certainly different ways to look at the day that this culmination, and we focus on the day. Obviously, for the guests, for us, most of you guys listening, we celebrate it every day. We're thinking about this stuff and or participating in it one way or another all the time. But to have the day focused for the general public to catch wind, or maybe see something in their social feeds about National Hunting and Fishing Day, or maybe they see a proclamation from one of the 45 states that stepped up this year, setting a new record, 44 governors and the state assembly in New York doing something. This is important. It's wildly impressive. The states that have stepped up to recognize the governors there. So again, hopefully the people in your universe, your environment that don't participate, perhaps they're seeing some of this, and it's enough to just kind of clue them in, see what it's about. And certainly on the day we're celebrating the contributions of America's sportsmen and women. Don't always like to make it about money, the storytelling aspect, because there's so much more motivation, passion that gets us to the point of spending dollars that have this other benefit, right? It's not we are not going out, if we're being honest brokers, we are not going out buying a license because we know it's going to get matched. We go out because we want to be out there in the outdoors. We want to go fish. We want to go hunt whitetail. We want to go trapping. Um, we enjoy shooting 3-gun or, some sort of tactical games deal, or just plinking targets. But knowing the benefit of those activities through our passion, we then realize who we are, how valuable we are to the entire country, even if we're only a small minority, especially when it comes to hunting and trapping. We've covered this. We know recreational shooting really is the big driver for the funding mechanism, right? We know that. Fishing, self-sustaining, easily accessible, low burden on the gear. You can go buy a Zebco push button rod and a bucket of worms for a kid, and they'll be out there all day as long as they got worms catching fish. Like that's accessible, and more people do that and have fun. So in totality, we're just celebrating all of it, and I really appreciate again, Cuz talking about his thoughts, where he's been, where we're going, talking about young generations using technology, the advantages, not always just bagging on it because of the negative impacts. Um, it's interesting talking with Scotty about that cross section of the professional snowboarding world that he comes from, and the impression or the um, the way he interact with folks in that community and maybe changing some minds and some hearts. And then obviously Sam. I mean, I hope I didn't come across as pumping Sam's tires too much. I don't think I did. I don't think he thought so. Just kind of running down his accomplishments. He's so accomplished and very well spoken and one of our great modern storytellers. You see him if you're in tune to things, you see him out and about for a reason. Because of his talents, and he's so good at it, and he's studied, and he can speak on this stuff very articulately. And when someone is engaging like that, and he can spin a tale or tell a story that is meaningful and impactful, like those are the folks you want to rally around. Those are the folks you want to continue to make sure they're getting in front of the limelight and the TV cameras because they represent our community well. They understand the value and how the whole system works. So all that to say, thank you. It was a good weekend. I hope you had a good weekend. I hope you all got out. Uh, really just getting started here in the last quarter. I know some of you folks will hunt and have activities all the way into January, February. Some places maybe even just a bit longer. But for most of us, this is it. It's October, and we're going hardcore into it now. Everything's in full swing. So get out there. If you have the opportunity to mentor anybody of any age, bring them out if there's an interest. If you have the capacity and the ability to share, do so. You'll change a life most likely, and you will help continue and provide for our hunting and outdoor recreating heritage that is long-standing and deep-rooted, and we want to see it continue. And that means folks that do it step up. That means you legislators that are listening understand the value of all this and address policy accordingly. Working with the legislative sportsmen's caucuses in your state. If you're not part of it, we encourage you to join. Um, and asking questions. It's super easy and the answers are readily available if you only know to ask. So happy National Hunting and Fishing Day 2025. Um, and certainly tip of the cap to Johnny Moore's Bass Pro Shops and Wonders of Wildlife, where National Hunting and Fishing Day is got a home. We'll leave it there. We will see you guys next Wednesday rather, for our weekly news roundup, and we'll do this program again in a couple Thursdays. Take time to go back through the catalog, check out past shows, take your time dissecting this one. Um, got some great shows rounding out the end of the year here. Um, our next show, I get to bring to you my experience and bring you some friends at Fur Takers of America as we recap the Trappers College experience that we were lucky to be a part of. And then we got a great ladies hunt. We're gonna talk to you about a CSF hosted ladies hunt and some influential women in the policy space and the shooting sports space that are gonna come on and talk about that kind of stuff. And then man, then we're into mid-November. So I'll leave that all out there and tease that. But some great content, some great shows upcoming. We hope you continue to tune in. We hope you continue to hit the follow and subscribe. Um, hit those 5 stars. Again, I think I mentioned it on the roundup show. The majority of you guys are listening on Apple, so super easy. Just hit those 5 stars, scroll down at the bottom, takes no time, as well as the follow. That way we show up in your feed anytime there's a new drop. We'll show up right there on your screen. And then the rest of you guys are on Spotify for the most part. And you can do that there too. There's stars to fill in, as well as a follow button you can smash. So we appreciate that interaction. We appreciate the support. Helps us get this program in front of new eyes, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to tell our story to new folks and um, bring them along. Have a good weekend, everybody. Enjoy the time outdoors. Be safe. Get home to your families. Shoot straight, all of that. And we will see you guys very soon. Thanks so much for tuning in. See ya. Thanks for joining us on this edition of the Sportsman's Voice podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, your support is crucial, and you can help us out right now by leaving a review, filling in those 5 stars where available, sharing this episode with friends and family, and engaging with us socially. CSF can be found on Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. Together, we can protect the outdoor sports we love and continue to keep you informed wherever you are. That's it for this week. Until next time, we'll see you later.